Meeting of the Electoral Board to order, and welcome everyone, and introduce to you people you already know, our Vice Chairman Kevin Pinkney. Second evening. Good
Hello.
evening. The Secretary, Jeff Shapiro. And I'm the Chairman, Amy Hanley, still. You just heard, but I'm going to repeat it, that the Electoral Board meetings are now being videotaped. The link to the recording will be available on the Office of Elections Electoral Board Meeting Minutes webpage within 3 business days of the meeting. If you do not want your image recorded, please hide your video. You have been warned. I'll entertain a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved. Second.
All in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That motion carries. The next item is the minutes of March 13th, 2005. This tape now is also available on the county website. These will probably get shorter as we go along because you can go to the tape as it were. Is there a motion?
Well, at some point, we'll be using AI.
That's under new business. That's under really new business next year.
Yeah.
Is there a motion to?
I moved to adopt.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to adopt the minutes. All those in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That motion carries. Election officer appointments. We have before us a very brief list, but remember we've had some very long ones of the appointment of 38 officers. 10 Democrats, 6 Republicans, and 22 unaffiliated. Is there a motion? It's on both sides, by the way. Is there a motion to approve these election officer appointments?
And he's been vetted by both parties.
Yeah, always before we get on.
Just making sure. Okay. Just a question.
Okay. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion. So
Okay.
moved.
I'll second that.
All those in favor, discussion? All those in favor?
Yeah, so officers of election who are appointed today,
Yes,
will they have the opportunity to be trained to participate in the primary? Yes.
yes. Other discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, that motion carries. The general registrar's report. Good evening, general registrar. Eric Spicer, I did not introduce you. You've now been introduced, and we have your report, so here we go.
Thank you, Kate, and we did it. Just over 800,000 registered voters active and inactive by adding 568 yet this month. And going into the other numbers, active subtractions, everything, nothing really noteworthy. You'll see most of the numbers are about a third of where we're at, including the deceased individuals, about a third as for the 3 months. Then we go to page 2. The additions, again, 2,163 new registrations, about a third of what we have for the 3-month period. So everything's in line with what you would expect. And then you go into the final section, the transactions, where DMV is the largest transaction, all the address changes and everything else. But again, nothing really noteworthy on that page unless there's any questions.
DMV, have we seen duplicate information coming across the feed when we're at the Viva conference? I heard some jurisdictions have been affected by that.
Could you speak on that, Bushra? We do have some duplicates from, could you please stand at the podium, talk about DMV online transactions and duplicates?
Yes, we always have duplicate transaction from DMV, but those duplicate, because they are duplicate, we do not process it. System vendors will process it automatically over the night. So we do not process the duplicate. If they submit duplicate application and matching 100%, the system will process it. Consider as a duplicate.
Have we seen a surge in duplicates, like the DMV feed misfired and sent an extra batch of other duplicates?
No.
I haven't seen a spike.
No, we did not. Actually, now is the slow time. The average, we have 200 online application.
Okay, thank you.
While you're out there, can you stand
I
there
have a
and say,
question. So my understanding is that Veris looks for the duplicate
Yes,
And if there's not an exact match, do you then do a manual look?
Yes.
Okay.
If it's 100% match, system Veris will process it.
We'll treat it as a duplicate, we'll
Duplicate.
flag it.
Yeah, and it's called admin duplicate match. But anything less than 100% match will come to our hopper. We look at it and we process. Like, for example, somebody changed their name or change apartment number. It's not 100% match. So we need to go through it and process that.
Okay. So anything that doesn't match the database, but they could be in the database and they're just
Yes.
making a change, you'll catch that.
We will.
Okay.
We don't add it.
Does DMV ever explain why they have a duplicate?
That's such a good question.
They
That's
just,
one for
it's
the
unapologetic.
ages. Yes.
So it's depend when you visit DMV and you stop, and yes, I want to register, but all your information is the same. DMV is required to send all those data to Department of Election.
Okay. But that's different than a data misfeed where a batch process sends us 10,000 records that we already had.
Yes, we do not have.
We haven't seen that in our county.
Yeah, that was 2022. There was some backlash from DMV happened.
We have, I just, I heard from, I
Yes,
met a lot of people.
Not recently.
3 weeks ago at Viva, just.
Yeah, that was before, yes.
Just wondering.
that happened, two pile happened before election, 1 week before election. We received 10,000 and another pile of 13,000.
Got it, but now,
But we processed all of them.
but now if that were to happen, the computer system automatically identifies it if it's 100% match.
Correct.
In 16, we had a stack that high.
Bushra,
Yes.
one more moment.
Okay.
Your last section, confirmation mailing, looks like you've got almost 2,000 responses. That's terrific. That helps us clean up our list. And then you've got a date for the second confirmation mailing.
Yes, June 25th, 2025. They will send the second batch of NCOA. So elect will mail out NCOA, another one in June 2025, June 25th.
Question about that. What is
Yes.
incomplete, the 12 incomplete?
So those incomplete others, for example, it was not signed or signed by power of attorney. So those are not acceptable. We cannot take action. So say, for example, someone sent back their NCOA, but they forgot to sign it. Or somebody else, power of attorney signed it. We cannot take action and take that NCOA and process it.
So you can't take action like putting them on inactive. That would be
No,
inaction.
all of them will be inactive.
They're gonna be, they'll
They
be,
will be.
so these 12 incompletes will be moved to inactive?
Already, they are already.
Okay. All right.
Thank you, Bushra.
Sure.
Then the next part on page 3 is really a reminder, we talked about satellites at the last meeting. The satellites will open, we're gonna have a dual primary, Republican and Democratic. It'll open 3 weeks from tomorrow, will be the first day, and we'll have the 3 locations, Government Center, Mount Vernon, and North County. And then the other 13 locations will open June 7th for 2 Saturdays and the days in between except for Sunday.
On that early voting during the primary, at the other 2 locations that are there for 45 days. Can we get the number of people who voted historically during that 45-day period as opposed to
For primary,
for the primary? Yeah,
Sure.
what kind of foot traffic are we actually getting? And it's probably not tracked, but is it tracked whether they come at 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock? Do we have tracking by the hour? I imagine our computer system actually would allow us that.
Well, we can get information, but while he's here, Robbie,
Yes.
can you please just, he's great at the data, very data driven. So just some brief information, we looked at these numbers. And then we can give more detail, but just give an idea.
Sure. So certainly Lawrence and Bill are the experts on this, but in terms of that last part, whether or not we have data on when voters are checking in, when a voter checks in on the poll pad during early voting, that gets reported back into the central server immediately. And from the data in the central server, we can see the exact check-in time for each voter. So yeah, we can export that data and look at that. And we have done that to see what the voting patterns are, what times people show up. It's one of the reasons why years ago, the early voting hours changed to what they are now, which is 1 o'clock to 7 o'clock at the satellites, because that's when we saw the most voters.
Yeah, that's what we were talking about.
We're gonna have-
The COVID hiatus change and then.
we'll have to see what,
We're watching
we'll
that.
keep track of it, yeah,
Yeah.
to see if people are back to voting later. Because went earlier and then now they don't, there's rarely lines at the end of the day. So the other thing, folks, we have not had a Fairfax County resident on a statewide ballot for a long time. And we will have this time, so that may,
Statewide.
yeah, on a statewide, in a
Right,
statewide election.
Yeah, this past one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so,
Well, yeah, I mean, certainly last year, we didn't have, I don't think we had a Republican primary,
well, there's some places we did not, they were,
but we had a
No, we
Democrat primary with 9% turnout, if I remember correctly. I'm hoping both parties exceed 9%.
I think you can pretty much count on that.
If I may, I think.
Stanley's
In terms of, if
prediction.
you're talking about election day turnout, I think 9% has actually been the high water mark over the last 4 years. Wow. In terms of what we see in terms of either individual parties. turnout.
Remember, 9% is now, is of 700,000, so when you look at, people get confused, a little confused because we count a Republican turnout as 9% and a Democratic turnout as 7%. And so the total is really
Right.
16. So when you
Right.
have this kind of duel, it's all over the place.
Yeah, I don't know that we had a Republican primary last year. I
I
just
didn't- I
remember that
certainly-
9% number.
I certainly am not the
Democrat.
person to ask.
All right, well, anyway, I don't
Did a
chatter.
terrific job growing Bill, working with Robbie.
Yeah.
They adjust the numbers, adjust the staffing, depending on what the turnout is like. So is the request to track it and report after this, is that, or was it historical? What is it?
It sounds, well, I'm interested in now, because we want to get the post-COVID voting pattern, so
Yeah,
I'm not
let's
sure
see a
about
little
historic so
history.
much, yeah.
One of the things that you do when you run satellites as efficiently as we have, by the way, pardon me for looking over my glasses. I've had one eye done with cataracts and the other one hasn't. So I have to read and see in the distance at the same time. One of the things we try to do is be as consistent every year in hours and with the number of satellites, because people get confused if it's open for a certain time and that one's open and this one's open. And then we get lots of calls about that because they went and it wasn't open, they went too early or went too late. So the consistency is important as well.
Well,
Yeah,
I mean,
but
and
the history-
that feeds into the, do we stay open here
Yeah.
till 7 o'clock, because the other satellites.
Exactly.
Because the satellites stay open to 7, should we not be closing at 4:30, should we stay until 7? So
That's a
the
good
data
point.
that we get, I mean, it'll inform us for primaries, it won't be probative for the general election. But I guess the historic information for the general, actually the presidential versus gubernatorial, but yeah, I guess the request would be for the hour type of things. If we're looking at, yes, we want to be consistent with past practice with satellite hours to the extent reasonably practical. But should we adjust to 7 here in this
Here.
building?
Okay.
And, I'm in the Franconia, and so, what's going to happen with, and there are some adjustments that have to happen. Right.
The only thing I would add to that is, so we have that data beginning in 2021, because that's when we started using the poll pads as our checking devices. Before that, I'm not sure if we have reliable access to that data. CFlow.
And that's post-COVID anyway, so 2021 forward, fine.
And I do recall that about 2 years ago, we went through an exercise of reviewing all the historical check-in data that we had at our satellites to look at the hour-by-hour breakdown to see, does it make sense to continue doing it the way we're doing it, or would it make sense to try and adjust things and do it differently? And no matter what we tried in terms of modeling different options, every one of them would have ballooned the costs for running the satellites in a very large way. And so the schedule and timing that we have now seems to work very well all around. And of course, that's not to say we shouldn't look at the data again. It's really makes sense. But I defer to General Insurance and you all as select board.
While you're here, you just briefly talk about your resource allocation. You did a terrific job, both for the satellites and for the.
Oh, well, that's another item on the agenda.
Oh, we can look for it. Okay,
Let's finish you're this side of
and I'll
it.
just tease you. I'll tease you with, we have a resource allocation.
Yes.
Very balanced. And it takes us over to page 4 with client release. Like about the resource allocation, absentee no request.
I have a question here that says,
Where?
well, on page 4,
Okay,
regarding the absentee by mail requests. We say we approved 10,752 absentee ballot applications. But it include 9,924 were quote unquote permanent application. So in what sense are we approving that?
They have to be complete and accurate. Have, the question, can you,
Do you review,
I don't personally.
oh, not you personally, but the office,
Me too.
Yes.
the royal we here.
Right.
You actually review the permanent applications each year?
Yes, so like for any application, permanent absentee application we receive, there is a requirement, like your name, your address should match your registration address and the signature and the election that you are requesting to apply by mail. So after we review the application, we will process it and approve it. So if you
But I
ask
think the
to,
question was, if, once we've done it the one time on a permanent,
that's
we
it.
have to do it again.
Yes,
That's kind of what I'm asking.
Yes.
yes, unless sometimes people are submitting another application. So that will be duplicate again for absentee.
Okay, so maybe approved is the wrong word.
Yes,
It's
Review.
reviewed is probably better.
Okay.
Well,
We're sorry. Okay.
Well, where do those 9,924 or 10,752, where are they reflected in the table on page 1 and 2?
they are not reflected there. This is absentee application.
This is the list of people that said,
So they're already registered with.
Yeah, that's a
Yes.
registration. That's
Yes.
different.
going
Second page.
going ahead.
Yeah, that's registration.
Then we're at the bottom of page 4, election officers. As you can see later on in the resource allocation, we've got about 1,800 election officers. And the chiefs will be Republican. We go to page 5. Tell you a little bit more about that. And then election officer training, every 2 years, if you recall, you appointed election officers. We're required to do very extensive training for all the election officers every 2 years. And then we also do a training for the chief and assistant chief prior to each election. This gives you a little bit of information about that. Any questions about the election officers? If not, I'll move on.
Is the oath administered orally? Or do they sign their oath? Okay, so we have a paper trail of people who signed their oath. So.
Yes. Yes, we have books and books.
Logic and accuracy testing for this election begins shortly. We'll test first, of course, the early voting machines because early voting is going to start May 2nd. So this is on page 6. Early voting day, it happens at our Morissette Operations Center and it's open to observers. And the election day polling place, the central count, and then the poll pads. We've got the dates for all that. We test every single piece of equipment.
And we do this every election.
Yeah.
Have we ever had
We have equipment that have, it has sort of issues, and so we'll get it repaired. Very few problems. The performance has been 100%, but you'll have mechanical issues occasionally. And as it got older, you would have more, but now we have brand new equipment. And the legislation, I think you know about that, but the governor acted on the legislation recently.
I think we are gonna have to point out
Yes.
that the big one here for the, well, there are two. The two mentioned, the books will close instead of 21 days before the election, they'll close 10 days before the election. Or in other words, 11 days later than they used to. The theory behind that is, and I'm not necessarily a believer in this theory, I'm gonna wait to see if it's true. The theory behind this was that it would cut down on same-day registration because registration, the books would stay open longer, as we call it. There used to really be books. I think we know Thomas Jefferson's precinct book, seriously. But I'm not sure that's gonna change SDRs, but this will be a good test to some extent in the primary to see if it does. But that was the theory behind it, to give people a long enough time. The other one I think is going to be a challenge, and at some future meeting, we'll probably want to hear just a couple of sentences about how we're actually going to get those provisional ballots assigned to precincts Because we have not been doing that. The provisional ballot itself was a precinct essentially. And so now we're gonna have to figure out how to assign them to the precinct where the people live.
Right.
So I look forward to us sorting that one out. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, as a follow-up, can I ask the registrar, the first bill, is that operationally gonna cause difficulties or significant changes?
The 21 to 10 day.
Yeah, the 21 to 10 days.
It's gonna be challenging. We have emergency poll books. We'll have far less time to create those, but the good news is this falls under Bushra. So I'm very confident.
It'll get done.
Yes.
We didn't worry about it. We said, I'll let Bush take care of that.
Okay,
But it certainly will be much more challenging for us than for small jurisdictions.
Everything usually is. Keep going.
Then communications, could you just say something briefly about we have been based out?
Yeah, we had, for the first time in years, USCIS had a new citizen ceremony here in the government center, which is terrific because it's well, we think they should have it there more often. It's such a, it's a perfect venue. There's flags. The parking is really easy. Access is easy. It's perfect. So we worked with the League of Women Voters to register the new citizens. And also we had something like 10 out of the audience who were citizens who wanted to register to vote. We had our translators there going up and down the aisles, helping people. We helped them with their applications and so forth. And they handed them to us. We were there to check it off. The fun thing is that the 250th anniversary committee for Virginia, US anniversary committee for Virginia was there. And she gave a nice talk and they helped sponsor it with the DAR. And so they had cookies, they had refreshments and so forth after the fact, which is really rare. We've never seen that in the citizen ceremony. And we had the Continental Army there. And the Continental Army presented the flag before the ceremony and they retired the flags and they were circulating around. So after the ceremony, the new citizens were down, they were getting pictures taken with the Continental Army. So
How
that
many
was great
countries
fun.
were they from?
There were 59 countries, 75 people, and they call out their names individually. And so forth.
If you haven't
So-
ever seen this.
So it's, it's great. And it's just such an uplifting, event to be there. Because the new citizens are so proud. They're getting their pictures taken in front of the flag and they're so excited about voting. So it was good. And Sean gave a little talk before the ceremony about the importance of registering to vote and that our office was upstairs. And anytime they have any questions, to let us know. But what happens with the new citizen ceremony is, of course, is that not all of the citizens are from Fairfax County. They're from all over. And so we bring the applications back to Bushra and her team, and they have to go through and sort them by legislation. She loves this job, she and her staff. And some it's very obvious if it's Loudoun County or Prince William, but some when you get into Arlington, Alexandria, Fairfax, is it us, is it Fairfax City? So they have to be, you've got to check the address and see where they are. And then we bundle those up and we send them to the other jurisdictions. We also make a list of all of the applications we get from the citizen ceremonies. So we always have that record of how many came in, where we sent them, where they ended up, and so forth. So as it turns out, was it like 20? I think it was 20 were actually Fairfax County out of the 79 or whatever it was, 80 with the people in the audience. So while it's a good effort overall, it's a lot of work for us because they're not all new citizens. Whereas if we go to a retirement community, they're all Fairfax citizens and, the job is much more simple. So I asked if they were going to do this regularly. He said they would like to do it every 3 months here at this building, but they're waiting for permission from the county or making arrangements or something like that. So hopefully the county will get back to them because it's a nice venue and it makes it very easy for us to get our materials down there and back up.
Did they show a video
Oh, yeah.
of naturalization services
Right.
from across the country?
Well, they do. Yeah, they show 2 videos. Right.
So when I went through this a few years ago, they have these panoramic views, of these ceremonies being held at Mount Rushmore or in front of the Golden Gate Bridge or all these various places. And you think this is ennobling. Being a citizen is ennobling. And I think about how should our polling places look, right? We've got the flags up. Do we have flags up? I know we got the little tiny, fits in your fruity beverage drink size flags, but, having a flag, having a picture of Mount Rushmore, the Statue of Liberty, it's not something that we maybe can do. Maybe we can't, maybe as the board, we can put some American.
Well, are they in front of
Citizen.
the county seal, the great big county seal we have? They can be
Hanging outside.
Fairfax. No, in the boardroom,
Oh,
there's a
right.
huge.
Boardroom, yeah, it's like nothing's taken out. They're on the podium, they're sealed on the podium.
Oh, good. Anything else on this?
Our next item is office personnel. We lost our finance manager last August. What are you to do? Well, we made a fantastic draft pick. We got the financial manager from the police department, which is slightly larger than we are. Our budget's about 4% of theirs. I think this is Maren, is their budget about 200 and some million?
Yeah.
This is Maren Manny. Welcome to us. She started on Monday. With a wealth of experience, doing fantastic. So it's terrific. And then the FOIA, we've had a very small number of FOIAs recently. The electronic poll book, I'm sorry.
Yeah, on the FOIA. Oh, never mind, it wasn't a FOIA.
Okay.
Electronic poll book, this is just catching you up, if you recall. We extended, rather than getting the FOIAs that was going to be the old iPad, the new version came out, and sure enough, it's been released. So we're going to get the new poll book in July at no extra cost. So that's terrific. And we've got the voting equipment project that's rolling along. The only final part, we need approval for the new accessible express vote machines. That's scheduled to occur May 27th. The State Board of Elections has to approve them. And so we expect to get those in the summer, probably in July.
Now, the vendor had promised to send me a copy of the language that they promised that we can get the upgraded software at no cost for the upgrade to the voting standards from the election system committee. They've never said that. So can I get a copy of the contract?
Definitely.
Thank you.
And then finally, we made some referrals. We had 64 individuals this past month in March were identified by Department of Elections as possibly being non-citizens, 4 of them obtained their citizenship. So 60 individuals were referred to the Commonwealth Attorney, the Attorney General.
Okay, questions? Okay, moving on to electoral board reports. I have handouts. That one's dry, I think. And one for the record, and I think you have one.
Yeah.
It's exciting news. If you'll turn to the very back page, folks. We have, this is about the awards program in Fairfax County. And we have winners. And Mr. County Executive,
I'll take it.
Registrar, would you like to, no, no, you wouldn't. Would you, we have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 winners of outstanding performance awards. Would you care to introduce them? And when you are introduced, folks, you must stand up so we can then applaud. Here's the list.
Thank you. That'd be helpful. In no particular order, first, I would like to announce Bushra Ardalan. Judy Clarity from our voting equipment team. Mark Beal, work with her on project. Is Mark here? Gretchen Coleman, our election officer. Sean Rogers, our training manager. Ian Benson, also on the election officer team. John Stewart, at that time was our absentee mail. Bill Turley. And manager of the satellite program, Flo Brown, what a team. Yeah. And Gerald Taylor. Gerald. Just to put it in perspective, our entire team, hundreds of people, are fantastic, outstanding. Each of these individuals, not only are they exceptional, they did much more, like leading the satellite better than it's ever been done before in our voting equipment, new projects and new programs. So they received a small token from the county, and they'll get a day of administrative leave, and they did a fantastic job.
They get a day of administrative leave, $300, and last but not least, the very impressive lanyard. Does anyone have theirs on? No one has them on.
We haven't
You haven't got them yet.
had the ceremony.
That's better than winning what do you get when you retire? You're not retired.
Gold watch.
This is the, yes, no. Thank you all. And I hope that the next meeting you'll be wearing your very fantastic lanyard.
We do when we have.
By the way, in this handout that I gave to the board is that the registrars put together is the list of all the various awards programs in the county that various people have won at various times in the past. The people I didn't hear, but it's the award program of the county that I thought you might be interested in. That's my electoral board report. Mr. Vice Chairman, do you have anything under electoral board reports? We can come back to it. Nope.
Nothing that.
I have nothing. I got nothing for you.
You got nothing for me? Okay, then we'll move on to old business. We don't have any that I know of. New business, the resource allocation for the June 17th primary elections. Robbie, somebody, you have them here. They are almost large enough to see.
Yeah.
Robbie, you want to talk about these?
Yeah, absolutely. So starting with the early voting resource allocation, early voting, obviously very capable by Flo and Bill. So they put together the list of the resources that they need. Every satellite location will receive at least 2 DS300 scanners for the selection, where there are 3 sites that are open the longest, receiving 3 scanners. 2 of them actively used at the locations, 1 on standby if it's needed. Excuse me. Every location will get 2 express votes as usual. Every location will get multiple admin tablets to help with different functional processes, including same-day registration and voter lookup. We often have voters who show up at the satellites that are on the edge of the county, may live, in the city of Falls Church, or may live on our side of the county, and so they can use the admin tablets to help look them up. Of course, we have enough ballot-on-demand printers for each location, and the big one is making sure that we have enough ballot-on-demand paper for every location. Fortunately, we have more than enough paper on hand already from past elections. Based on the turnout last year and assuming a healthy increase this year, we still have more than enough paper to cover everything that we need.
Can you explain, this is special paper, we counted, it's got the special marking.
Yes, so this is paper that is provided to us by our vendor for ballot on demand purposes. And of course, we go through a thorough process of accounting for all that paper. We're actually working through our way of enhancing that process of ensuring that we track not just how much paper is being used each day at each satellite, but also the packs that they open sometimes don't have exactly 200 sheets of paper that they're supposed to. So Flo and Bill have worked through and updated some of the forms to ensure that the election officers at each location can better account for when there are discrepancies, so we can more easily take that back to our vendor and say, this is highly problematic. There shouldn't be discrepancies in these numbers, because then that can undermine confidence in our election systems when the numbers are not always matching up. The forms, of course, have been updated to account for that and allow for the election officers to identify those things.
I'm just reading down just the satellite page. Do you have a copy in front of you?
I do.
Okay. June 2021 turnout total across the satellites is 10,826.
Mhm.
And then if I read across, each of those are turnout numbers, 16,000, 12,000, 10,000.
Mhm.
If we had 800,000 registered voters, which is roughly what we have now,
Mhm.
10,000 represent 1.25%.
It's a small percentage. In primary elections, we have significantly fewer voters who choose to vote in general, whether that's early in person, on election day, or by mail.
Now, the cost of election.
Let
I'm sorry.
let me ask one other thing. It's hard to compare primary to primary unless we have countywide primaries every year. And we don't even have the same countywide primary every year. Some year we'll have, some of these will have delegate districts or Senate districts. Some years only have delegate districts and governor. I mean, The primary, it's like every other thing. It's hard to compare year to year to year. You have to almost compare that year to the fourth year, the year like it before you in the November election. That makes sense. But the primary may not also be the same. So primaries are really difficult for. To look back, is my experience with this. It's very complicated.
Okay, so our estimate for this year is 21,000, which would be 5,000 more than we had 2 years ago and double what we had the other years. So if we had 21,000, that'd be 2.5%. Roughly. What portion of our electoral EO
What portion of our electorate, what?
expense is associated with satellite as opposed to election day?
Sure, I would defer to the general registrar or finance manager in terms of the overall expenses. I think what I would say is we're statutorily required to offer early voting. And of course, we do that here at this office. The other 15 locations that we open them, the schedule, the dates and times that they are open are carefully reviewed and evaluated every election to make sure it still aligns with optimizing for the voter turnout that we might expect to see. So for example, we have the 345-day locations. So that way we're providing coverage across the county. So if a voter in the south part of the county wants to vote early, they have an option within a reasonable distance. But the other remaining 13 locations are only open for 1 week at the end of the voting period. So we try to be more limited, more focused in when we're offering those options.
Historically, satellite voting, in-person voting is far more expensive. The one exception, so in answer to your question, it costs almost probably about a third of what the cost at the polling places where we have for. For November elections, it has grown so much that it was about as cost effective. It almost as much turnout last November, and it cost less than it did for the polling places. But that will never be the case for a June primary, just because you can't really put a price on. We're legally required to have satellite voting throughout the county.
Sure, but our current plan isn't coextensive with what our legal obligation is. It's discretionarily more generous, and that's fine. That's what it is. And to Kate's earlier point, we like election.
Hours,
Yeah,
yes.
consistency. Again, I'm on the record of saying I think we should stay open till 7 o'clock, but I do want to get the context and the analysis that you're talking about. I think is
Wait, let me make one other point.
by 445 days here, but with longer hours, and maybe it's 2 weeks, maybe it's 3 weeks, maybe it's not 45 days. Where you're expecting 1,200 people, or, anyway, I want to get the
turn yours on.
It's Megan, she's got a question.
Megan has your hand up. Can you hear me, Megan?
Hi, yes, the Zoom audio went out for about the last 5 minutes, so I apologize. I actually raised my hand to tell you that the audio had gone out, but I do have a question. Sorry.
Before, for those of you in the room, if you want to make a public comment, please raise your hand to be recognized. As you know, you come down to the podium. Please identify yourself and any organization you represent, if you do represent one, before you're giving your statement. You know, and you know I'm watching, you have 3 minutes to tell us what you need to tell us. If it is incredibly complicated, or even if it's just a little complicated, we ask that you let us know in writing so that we can answer, the office can answer that.
Okay.
Now, what?
It looks to me like your laptop has about 8% battery left.
My laptop is not doing anything.
It's not doing anything?
My
Okay.
laptop, like its owner, is fairly
Okay.
useless in this meeting. I just
All right.
see.
And we had jumped ahead through new business to questions before rounding up the new business. So I did have 1 or 2 things for new business.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So I
Take that all
apologize.
back. You're, go.
First, what, if anything, are we hearing from elect with respect to the recent executive order that relates to election integrity? What are we hearing from Richmond?
I've not heard anything from Richmond, have you? No, no advisory, nothing.
Nothing today in the meeting, they just skipped over the question.
Could you speak up, please?
You mean
Oh.
the federal?
There's a federal executive order.
Yeah.
This year, we're dealing with state
State,
elections.
right.
But I'm wondering what if anything, elect is doing, messaging to us or explaining.
We have
Okay.
no information.
Next.
And then you both also received an email from an individual asking specific questions. I don't know if I should say their name. But alleging election interference. Is that something we ought to refer
That,
privately?
no, that's not to him. The question was, that was if you look at it, it was a question of a candidate in a political party, wanting us to look into the activities of the party. And I was out of town, I just saw it. You know the one I'm talking
I don't
about?
know what you're talking about.
And that, it's
It's a
I
party
didn't
level
answer.
issue. It doesn't come to us
It's
at all.
not our, not
Okay.
our table.
Should we respond and let him know that?
We probably, I think he knows it because he is not on the ballot.
Okay.
I mean, that was a question, I think, generally to whoever could look into it, but we don't look behind.
What the parties
Party.
do, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. That was all I had.
Okay, I'm sorry. Now, back to what I said earlier, I still mean it. 3 minutes, come to the podium. And if it's too complicated for us to answer with a yes or no answer, we'll put your questions in writing. Is there any, let's start with anybody in the room. Is there anybody in the room? Craig, you have to come to the podium. What in the world? You've got to
Brought
get it.
stuff.
Oh,
There's 6 copies. You don't have to fight.
oh, thank goodness, I want paper.
You're gonna have to fight.
Thank you. Thank you. I love handouts.
Yeah. So Greg Brandon with the FCDC, I've handed out excerpts from an April 5th New York Times article about cybersecurity. The excerpts are related to election security. And so highlighted these, I'm going to read some of this for the record. Cybersecurity experts, election officials, and lawmakers have begun to raise alarms that the United States is knocking down a system that has taken a decade to build. It has pushed out some of its most experienced cyber defenders and fired younger talent brought in to design defenses against a wave of ransomware. On pages 2 and 3, I've highlighted some more stuff, basically from election officials around the country. There are 2 Democratic election officials and 2 Republicans who have quotes here. And let's see, so Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, which is, yes, CISA, SICE's election security program had helped identify not only cyber attacks, but also risk to key infrastructure like voter databases. There's a quote from, or an issue that Mr. Fontes from Arizona raised about 15 bomb threats that they had received and that were a hoax. And the realization that allowed voting to go largely uninterrupted in the battleground state once they found out it was a hoax and passed it around to other jurisdictions. And then there's Al Schmidt, Republican Secretary of State in Pennsylvania, sent a letter to Krispy Noem about 4 instances last year when federal cybersecurity programs currently being targeted helped his state hold fair elections, and so on and so forth. So I'm concerned about cybersecurity and election integrity, and I don't know what's planned, if there's anything planned, but we get elected, every year. And so if there are any inputs from discussions on that, I'd love to hear whatever we can do about that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Also, that there's going to be like a mock election in April on new equipment.
We finished that this week.
We're gonna have one, we're had it, or we're
We
gonna
had the
have.
mock election.
Oh, that was right yesterday.
It went very well.
Do a mock cyber attack on your mock election?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, Greg.
At our last meeting, you
Yeah.
asked Court the question,
Yes,
what is the effect of the cessation of funding? That seems related to this, maybe not the exact same.
actually, I think the question was not specific about funding, but specific, more to the effect on ours and the county's website and the whole system. Has there been any update? Are you getting updates of any kind? Oh, look here.
As I recall, the news last time was good.
Yes.
Yeah, since I last spoke, I wouldn't say there's any particular change for us. Again, we don't in particular use funding from CISA. We don't use a lot of their alerting systems because we're lucky to be the large size county that we are. If any of that changes, I'll let you guys know if we're directly affected.
Let's do.
Yep.
If our email still works, you can email us. Anybody else in the room? Andy?
Andy Bayer, Fairfax GOP. Do we have a list of who attended the mock election? Participants?
A list of who attended the mock election.
What is that?
Yeah. Sorry,
Which participants you refer to? It's
Okay.
all staff or-
I guess staff and observers. Do we have a list?
So the mock election is essentially conducted as an internal exercise for us to test the end-to-end process using the new voting equipment. So it was conducted by various staff involved in the operations.
Okay.
Okay.
So
And this-
typically no observers?
No, the process is now complete. Help us verify.
Were the parties notified in advance?
So the mock election had more to do with the configuration of the system in electionware. So things that aren't typically open to party observation in general anyways. Yeah, the part involving the actual scanning of the ballots was very limited. The parts that otherwise would be open to the parties.
Will that equipment be the equipment that we use for the LNA testing?
Yes.
So the yes.
The mock election
that
is a
is-
small subset of that equipment.
Sure, of course.
It was designed essentially to test a lot of what Court and his team do to make sure that the way the election is configured in electionware, given that there was an upgrade of the electionware server along with the new hardware, that those things are working well together to ensure that they have the opportunity to design a ballot, make sure that ballot prints out properly, scans on our machines properly. So it's nothing really there's no significant activity there that would be meaningful outside observation. It's really the internal processes that are occurring. What was being tested throughout the mock
And the
election.
parties will be notified for LNA.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
they'll be
This is something setting up.
Did it include the poll books or it was the new,
Just the voting equipment.
just the voting equipment?
It's really
Books are not included. It was just the new ES&S equipment.
It's really an acceptance testing. It's like you're getting an appliance, you're getting a piece of equipment, and you just want to make sure it works well.
Because the new poll book had, actually, it was the ballot marking machine. That's ESNS as well. Did it include the ballot marking machines or just the scanner?
It was just primarily the scanners because we haven't received any ballot marking devices yet. We expect to receive those over the summer, pending state certification.
They were glitchy, the ones that we were using. If you hit cancel, it actually shut the
Yeah.
machine down.
Oh,
So when there's acceptance tests, we don't want to accept a machine that does it.
it does that. Anyone else in the room? Anyone else online? Megan, did you have something?
I do, yes. Megan Challenger with the Fairfax Democrats Voter Protection Committee. Congratulations to those who won awards today, and thank you for all of your work to make sure that everyone can vote. My comment and question, though, is different. So for the past 8 months or so, the board has been referring potential non-citizens for prosecution. I'm not certain, but I do believe that Fairfax County is one of the only, if not the only county doing that process, rather than simply following the statutory process to review the ballot, send a notice to the person who submitted it, and then reject the registration if they don't correct it. My understanding is also that both the Commonwealth's attorney and the Attorney General have not prosecuted anyone referred. And so I would ask the board whether you have considered reversing this policy, given what a waste of government resources it is to continue to create the list, waste several prosecutors' offices' time reviewing the list when these folks aren't going to be able to vote anyway because they aren't being registered because they haven't filled out the form correctly.
Well, just as a point of fact, I'm pretty sure Arlington and Loudoun are also doing this. So it's not just Fairfax. And the other thing is they are registered. Okay, so that's, factually, they're on the roll until they get off the roll. So I'm just making the factual point.
Yeah, but I think by the time we send them, they are no longer registered. Isn't that the case?
Well, they're no
Yeah.
longer registered.
We are not sending. Isn't that the case for Busher?
Yeah. And I think we certainly don't control what the Commonwealth attorney and the OAG wish to do with it, the information, but that's on, in my view, on them, not us.
So those 60 are canceled.
I'm sorry?
They are canceled now. As of
Yeah,
the day
We're
we
not
send
sending
it.
them prior to
canceled.
cancellation.
No, we're not, because, and I think correctly, the registrar, for example, if they uncancel themselves, they're subtracted off that list.
Yeah, we had a new citizen who we got the email from her this week saying, providing her, she had just gone through the naturalization service on February 22nd. And so the record got updated. So that's appropriate timing. I would only also say that I don't necessarily agree with all the premises of the comment, but I do note that at least with respect to federal elections, one of the topics that was addressed in the recent executive order relates to engaging if there's not action at the local or state level to flag it for Department of Justice. That's not appropriate this year because this is state elections. But when we have a federal election, that's one of the things that I'm hoping the elect will give us some guidance on. Because certainly the executive order had language in it suggesting that we would raise the issue with the Department of Justice. And that's, again, we don't control any prosecutors, we don't control any district attorneys, we don't do that. But when it comes to election integrity, that's one of the mechanisms that exists.
And I think that you all are aware that I think that most of this is a DMV screws up problem, and that we should have some improvement, some investigation and improvement in the process that is being used, and the automatic, you get 14 days and the clock ticks and it comes back and you're off process, which I think is particularly harsh. Let me say that I believe strongly that you must be a citizen of this country to vote. I'm not, that is part of the premise. Citizenship is important. However, when we have a system like this one that refers to kind of automatically, mindlessly, people that could not find because of where the check mark is or whatever happens, that there should be, before we continue with this, there should be some review of how that process works. But I think this is probably all gonna be an observation for another day. But thank you, Megan, for reminding us and bringing it up. Anyone else?
Bill Dank.
Bill Denk.
Good afternoon. Yes, I hope I have a simple question. Page 8 of the registrar's report talks about the testing of the replacement machines, the 700 DS300s. I'm wondering if you have any statistic on how many of those machines failed and were sent back to the manufacturer and what the nature of the failure was.
I'm sorry, DJ, page 8. I couldn't quite hear the question. Bill,
The
what-
replacement.
I'm sorry, did you not hear the question?
which paragraph on page 8?
About voting equipment replacement project. Top of the page.
This is the testing acceptance of our new equipment. Yes, go ahead.
Sure, the most important number I'll start with is 100%. 100% of the machines that we currently have passed all of the required testing. So obviously, to get to that point, there were a small number of machines that didn't pass all the initial testing. I don't recall the exact number from the initial acceptance testing. I don't know if you remember, Judy. So for the second round of testing that we did a mini LNA of all the machines to ensure that all of the different parts were functioning correctly, testing them with pre-programmed ballots. And out of the 700 scanners, only 8 did not pass that. They were returned to the vendor for replacement.
And they were returned to the vendor. Okay.
And the process before that, the initial round of acceptance testing, during that one, any machines that did not pass that were immediately replaced with them.
8 out of how many?
8 out of 700.
Okay.
So 1%.
Thank you. And who is speaking?
Hi, I'm Robbie.
Robbie Kadeshi.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions from online? Okay, any other business to come before us? I will entertain a motion.
I move that we adjourn.
I second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye, we adjourn.
Use your pen.
Thank you. How'd you get it?
Don't ask.